I feel we could do better to talk about economics. I mean, we are better on the economy than Republicans are. We're not good at packaging it and selling it. And I think that we need to do a better job, because as the Latino vote goes or Hispanic vote goes, so does the nation.
This is What It Takes from Unmoderated News. I'm Sarah McCammon. Bobby Pulido spent 30 years building a career as a Tejano music star. And now he's running for Congress in South Texas, in one of the poorest parts of the state, trying to unseat a Republican incumbent. Pulido's opponent mocked his musical career, saying this election isn't about who you want performing at your niece's quinceañera. So Pulido turned that dig into 4,000 invitations to quinceañeras and other celebrations across Texas. Pulido thinks the key to flipping the district is to keep showing up in unconventional places. We talked in Washington, D.C. Bobby Pulido, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
You know, if there's one thing that people know about you who aren't from Texas, it's probably the quinceañera thing. You are known for performing at these coming-of-age ceremonies for young women. And I was thinking about that as I was getting ready to talk to you, and just thinking about, you know, I'm a mom of teens, and the significance of these coming-of-age moments and how difficult that transition can be. And, you know, whether it's a quinceañera or a bar mitzvah or a sweet 16 party, just the need for something like that, for the community to come around a young person as they're going from child to adult. And I just wonder, what were you like at that age?
I actually went to a lot of them. You know, what you have is the guys are called Chamberlain.
What is that word?
A Chamberlain.
Okay.
That's how everybody knows it at, right? So the quinceañera has like her own court, and she'll have her friends that are girls, and then there's guys, and so they'll go dance and do a dance together, like choreographed with her. And so I'd been Chamberlain many quinceañeras when I was growing up. I really didn't like it because I was introverted, but sometimes you get peer pressured into doing it. So, but it's a special thing. I'd probably done 7 or 8 quinceañeras throughout my career. Like, that's it.
Like before this?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I had not done a lot of them. I was very fortunate to take off in my career really big with my first CD.
So you were doing concerts, not quinceañeras.
We were doing concerts, yeah.
Now, how did this come about? I mean, I think your opponent said something that made me be a dig about performing at quinceañeras.
Yeah, she tried to be like Trump. Right?
Uh-huh.
She's a little like MAGA Monica, right? So she tried to be like Trump and tried to insult me and saying this isn't about electing somebody that would perform at your niece's quinceañera. That's how she put it, right? And we just said, you know what? If you're out there and you want me to go to your quinceañera, invite us, shoot us an invite, and maybe we'll show up and sing a couple of songs. And so after one day, we had 1,000 invites. And up to now, we've had over 4,000.
Yeah, a few people took you up on it. I mean, how are you sifting through all these invites?
Really hard. We try to keep everything in district. The ones we can't attend, obviously, there's a lot. We send them a personalized video, congratulating them.
And so when you're at these events, what is it like?
And most of the time, they're surprised. They have no idea. And it's really cool because they get really excited. We've got it down to a science. I mean, we're like, boom, 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 right? Like, just everything's right on time. It takes us about 15 to 20 minutes from the time we walk in to the time we get out.
You sing some songs.
I do. We give them a gift. I dance with her. We, take pictures with her and her family. And we tell everybody I'm running for Congress and I appreciate your support. Now, we do send people to register and sign up people. Of course, voluntary. And we're collecting a lot of signatures, a lot of people's data that they voluntarily give to us, and making a huge database now with a bunch of names.
When people find out that you're running for Congress, do people come up to you at these events and tell you about the things they're worried about?
No, it's you got my vote, you got my vote, you got my vote, you got my vote. Me and my family are supporting you. You got our vote. When you're in politics, we get focused a lot on policy and say, well, this I want to fight for this policy or I want to fight for that policy. You'd be surprised that the single most important motivator for people to go pull the lever for you is trust. People want to feel like they trust that you have their best interests at heart. It doesn't matter about the policy. It's that they trust that you'll do the right thing for them.
But aren't those two things connected?
They are, but not when they already know you, right? Like it's if they trust you, it's because they know you or they feel they know you.
So what is it about you, your message, maybe it's the way you show up. What is it about you that makes people trust you? I mean, you won your primary overwhelmingly.
Yes. And it was a tough one. And we truly ran a grassroots campaign. And we did a thing called ranch halls before the primary, where we'd go and take some Tejano music, feed them barbecue, and sing and answer their questions, gave them my stump speech. And it was just like a music, food, and politics, right? And
like a ranch hall instead of a town hall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And we haven't had hay bales, around there and stuff. And, what we found is even then, they're not that bogged down on policy, not like you would expect. It's just basically the basic necessities. Like, hey, I go to the grocery store and I walk out of there and I got a little bag and I spent $100, right? Like, help us, or I had another man that's like, sir, I mean, Bobby, like, I was spending, $50 a month for my medication. And now since these subsidies expired, that went up to $400 a month. I can't afford this. And if I don't have this medication, I could die.
What do you tell them?
I tell them, you know what? I promise that when I get in, that will be one of my priorities to go fight for. Now, I never give them these expectations like many do of vote for me and I'll make everything cheaper, right? I'd love to say that, but, and I tell them, look, I will be your voice up there. I'll go fight for you, right? But we have to work with 434 other people that have their policies too. And really that's, in Congress, that's what it comes down to. Now
they want to know that you hear them.
Of course, they want to be listened to. Most politicians talk over them. They don't talk to them. They preach. This is what you need. They don't listen. And I think, that's why we were very successful, because we truly said like, okay, I want to hear you.
You don't preach at these ranch halls, but you do sing.
Sing one song.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. At the end.
You're from South Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Tejano performer. That word it's a genre of music, right? But it's also
a culture.
A group of people. Yeah. Tell me, what does that mean to you, Tejano?
Well, the original Tejanos were there since before Texas.
Right.
On my mother's side, I'm 8th generation. We were there since before Texas was even a republic.
Yeah.
My
place
family,
where the borders have shifted.
Of course. My family was part of the Spanish land grants. So we had a lot of roots there for a long time. And the Tejano is truly a Hispanic. It's not necessarily, now we call it Latino, but Latino really means from Latin America. But our bloodlines for the most part have been in the northern part of Mexico and in Texas, right? And it's definitely, we did the ancestry.com thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty, we're Hispanics for the most part.
And what does that distinction mean to you?
Believe it or not, I sing in Spanish, but when I first started, I did not dominate Spanish language very well. I learned to phonetically pronounce the words, but I didn't even know what I was saying. We're Tex-Mex, we're Spanglish. We mix both languages, and it's really not a real language. It's kind of a mutt language, but that's part of our culture.
It's a mixture.
It's a mixture.
Yeah. Even
musically, our influences, you go to like the northern part of Mexico, it's norteño, and Tejano is kind of like a cousin of norteño, but with American influence. So they've gone through different types of eras where when disco was big, they would play our songs and our music with a disco feel, with keyboards and synthesizers, but you'd still dance like a two-step, right? And it just kind of changed with like country and whatever American things were happening. It used to be big band, and we had the big band influence in our music. And so we've always been very Americanly influenced on culture, but very proud of our roots. I always say we eat in Spanish. So too, because the tortillas and the beans and the barbecue, we have our own cuisine too.
And so from what I understand, you had to, because you didn't grow up speaking Spanish dominantly, you
Right.
had to learn some of the language
Yeah.
for your musical career. I mean, how did you go about that?
It was very tough. When I first started, my music started hitting in Mexico, and I first went to Mexico, and it was really rough because those journalists are not very nice. So they'll purposely use
Not
big
very
words.
nice.
Yeah, they would use big words on purpose, and it was really tough. But it
to
just
test your Spanish?
yes, and so it really motivated me. Though it took me years, but I got so good that somebody from Mexico could never tell that I'm from Texas.
So did you find like friends, family to practice with? How did you?
Actually, the people around me on the music team, security guards and, things like that, managers in Mexico, stuff like that. That's how I learned.
How has learning the language changed the way that you interact with people?
It definitely tested my patience and my, and also like my understanding of being sympathetic and empathetic to other cultures and not reacting so judgmental. I think that's something that has really marked my career and my life, is that I'm a lot more understanding with people, that getting like feeling in their shoes, right? So at first I was really angry about those type of things, and I just kind of said, kind of got to take this with philosophy and not so personal, and just roll with it and understand that I'm a foreigner. Like literally most of the time when you talk about an immigrant that comes to the United States, it's like they come to adapt here. I did it in reverse. I adapted over there when I went to go work. And I became very, very integrated with the language and the culture. I've been blessed to have toured every single state in Mexico. I really got to know the culture and the area, the different regions, and that was all through music.
In South Texas, it's a place that, as you noted, the borders have shifted. Your family's been there since before it was the United States. It's a place that's shaped by immigration, that feels the impact of immigration really first, right?
It does. I think when I was growing up in high school, we did have people that were from Mexico that would come in, but we were pretty much a community of Tejanos. And so it was very common to just speak English, and over the years, I think a lot of the people that came from Mexico came to enrich us. They truly did. The restaurants got better, the food got better. And, I think the whole community in the Rio Grande Valley integrated with the same people that were immigrants, that were coming over. That's why right now it's such a hurtful thing, because, a lot of the people that we know are either maybe they're undocumented or they have their green card, their residency. And even they're afraid right now. They will go to workplace raids and take people that have legal documentation just to detain them for 6 hours. This has happened. I do think that it has hurt our economy. Any society that's living in fear cannot function at 100%. It paralyzes you. And right now the economy is not doing well down there. And I think there's a lot of people that are Chamber of Commerce Republicans, right? That for taxes purposes and stuff like that, they voted Republican. They're not really happy. And
with President Trump's immigration enforcement?
Yes, or tariffs. I mean, if you're a small business owner, right? And you're on the border, and everything just got more expensive. And so people are clamping down with their budget, tack on the gas prices. And it's one thing after another, to be honest with you. And so all of those things combined have really put a hurting on our economy. And so a lot of people are like having that epiphany of, oh shoot, like, this was not the right call, even though they did not like the other option. But there is regret.
I just want to stay on immigration for a second. A lot of people, a lot of voters were unhappy with President Biden's policy.
Yes.
And as you say, a lot of people are unhappy now with the direction the Trump administration has taken enforcement.
Yep.
What should the Democrats' message be on immigration going forward?
I think we need to keep the part of border enforcement. The border enforcement is really popular. That's not an unpopular thing.
Even in your district?
Of course, the border was chaotic under the Biden administration. I saw it with my own eyes. Nobody's telling me. I lived it. And I crossed that border and I saw these tent homes and stuff. It was poorly managed. And I don't blame people for being upset about that. And I think if we're going to gain people's trust, we have to accept when we did things that were not right and we could have handled them better. And it's okay. That doesn't mean that I have a vendetta against or anything bad to say about President Biden, but that policy hurt us, right? Because it took him basically in the fourth year of his presidency, he signed an executive order and right away he started clearing things up. And a lot of the people were like, why didn't he do this in the first year? So the border
at that point, I think in the minds of many voters,
had been
he
made
was
up.
saddled with that.
Right. And again, like, I think the border policy is okay as long as we treat people humanely. I don't think putting buoys and stuff like that with razor wire and stuff is a humane way to do things. You fix that with policy, not with a physical barrier that could put them at risk. And you're seeing that right now, right? It's policy driven, really. But the enforcement that's going on inside of the towns, inside of the communities, is what people are having a really big hard time with. That's the problem, right? Because let's be honest, nobody likes to get pestered. They've even detained American citizens.
For sure.
Thinking that they were, they violated Fourth Amendment principles by going into houses without a judicial warrant.
And it's happened all over the country.
Yeah, but it's happened in the Rio Grande Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll leave, like literally take mom and dad and leave a 20-year-old boy to take care of his two siblings. Like, that's cruel. You can't, these are people that have been here for a long time. They detained the mariachi kids, the Gámez Cuellar family, detained them. They came in with a CBP1 app. They did things the right way.
Follow the rules.
They followed the rules, right? And they still were sitting in a detention center separated from each other. They lied. They said, we're going to go get the bad guys. And for about a week or 3 weeks, they did that.
This is a family in your community?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand there has been a lot of trust that's been broken where they said they would do something. I mean, literally, who's against you getting criminals out?
This happened because, as we said, a lot of people were unhappy with President Biden's policy. There was a reaction, it seems, with President Trump. A lot of the polling suggests now that while Trump made big gains with Latino or Hispanic voters in 24, a lot of those gains have eroded.
Yes.
I want to go back a little bit. Why do you think that in 2024, so many Hispanic voters shifted toward Donald Trump, toward the Republican Party?
Where I'm from, Kamala Harris did not resonate with the voters. The Valley, how you campaign there, there's like, it's very unique to the Rio Grande Valley is signs. Like when somebody's got support, they put up a sign.
Signs, yeah.
Oh yeah. They're like, I'm supporting this. Like they let everybody know. You saw a healthy dose of Trump flags. You did not see any Kamala signs at all.
Why?
I just think she didn't resonate. I think people saw that as a continuation of the Biden administration. I don't think she separated herself from it. She tried to be a good vice president and not criticize him. But I think she paid for it at the polls. And I think people don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what I saw, right? And I was not surprised that President Trump won down there. Not at all. And you have to understand, right? A lot of people that voted for him were not like red hat wearing MAGA people. It's a lot of people that were in the middle. He really got a lot of the independent vote. And a lot of times, a lot of Democrats voted for him too.
And it wasn't just 2024. I mean, the biggest shift was in that election. But even in 20, I think about a third of Latino voters voted for Donald Trump. There's been a gradual shift in that direction. I mean,
Yes.
What is that about?
I think what I'd like to see more from our party is to speak more in the language of economics. You got to understand, like in the Hispanic DNA, we come from nothing. We really do. We don't have generational wealth. That's not like a common thing. Yeah, there's a family here or there, but for the most part, we come from nothing. And so I feel like, and rightfully so, our party has focused on social justice, but a lot of times that kind of sucks up the oxygen, and we don't talk about economics and prosperity and ownership and actual like opportunity for us to make the lives better of our family and our kids growing up, right? That are growing up right now. And on the other side, at least they say, well, at least we'll cut your taxes. And so they have some semblance of an economic message, even though they're lying through their teeth. I feel we could do better to talk about economics. I mean, we are better on the economy than Republicans are. That's historically, that's what the data shows in the last 30 years. But yet we just don't, we're not good at packaging it and selling it. And I think that we need to do a better job, because as the Latino vote goes, or Hispanic vote goes, so does the nation. And you saw it. The African-American vote was very much with Kamala. They were with President Biden. They were with Hillary. But the Hispanic vote was split down the middle. And so I think that's something that I would
particularly for Hispanic men.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hispanic men went heavily for the Republican Party.
What's the gender gap about?
That's a good question. Look, I think we need to be a little more open-minded to young men's sympathies. I listen a lot to Professor Scott Galloway, and he's talked about it ad nauseum. He really has. And I think that's
the ways
even
that young men are struggling.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And I say this, Sarah, because I have 4 sons.
Wow, that's twice as many as I have. And I've got, that feels like a lot.
Yeah. I don't have any daughters. I have 4 boys.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
You think about it.
And it's rough on them. Right. And so, I think they also want to be heard. And there's a backlash. And we need to talk to young men and show them that we can also embrace our masculinity without, I think there was a big like bro culture thing that the Democratic Party just kind of dismissed, and you saw that, whatever happened with Rogan, that Kamala didn't go.
Joe Rogan, the podcast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's negligent, I think, in my opinion. Because
the theme is that Democrats need to listen.
Yes. I mean, I do think that we need to go out there and talk to everybody and not be, and then also not, we attack our own, and I think that's kind of put us in a little bit in a pickle, I mean, what we did to Al Franken is super sad. Like, I was very disappointed with that. I think he was a fantastic senator that got really poorly judged by our own purity tests, that tried to want to elect somebody that's perfect. And
former senator from Minnesota.
Former senator from Minnesota.
But he was accused of sexual harassment. I mean, this is an issue that comes up again and again.
I think it was mainly because he was doing a joke while she was asleep, and it was in poor taste, of course. But we're human beings. And this was an old thing, right? But I think as a senator, look at his track record. Like, he really fought for really righteous things. And I don't get it.
But I mean, should there be a line somewhere? Whether it is,
yes, of course there's lines,
anti-Semitism, yes, or racism or treatment of women. I mean,
sure,
how do you find that line?
Yeah, there's a line, and we have to use our judgment. But I just don't think it has to be so rigid. I mean, nobody's lived a perfect life. We've all done stupid things. But it's also about redemption. And I think that we all are redeemable. And if we're going out there looking for just the perfect people, we're never going to win. I promise you that.
I want to ask you, if I may, about faith. You've talked a little bit about your faith, about growing up Catholic.
Yeah.
What role does it play in your life?
Make no mistake about it, I do definitely, it's my faith, and I don't think I should implement my faith on other people's lives. I've made mistakes and I've asked for forgiveness. In my religion, Catholicism, you go to confession and you ask for forgiveness, or you just go to church and do it, right? And it's important. More importantly, on moral character, I definitely believe in, the separation of church and state, right? I don't think I should make decisions solely based on that. I think at the end of the day, we're a community that needs to live together in harmony, and you got to always look at the greater good and actually respect other people's religions too.
Republicans talk about their faith all the time, it seems like. Democrats, maybe not as much.
Yeah.
Do you think that Democrats should be more open about faith?
Of course.
How so? How should that look?
Well, I'll ask you this question. If you're atheist, what likelihood is it that you're a Democrat?
Statistically, much higher than
Much higher,
Republican.
right?
Yes.
I would say so, right?
Yes.
So they've kind of labeled us as like godless, type. You go down the Rio Grande Valley and you go to a house, you're going to see a cross in that house. The odds are like 9 out of 10, right? Like it's just something that's a part of our lives. And so, yeah, I think that the Rio Grande Valley, like, it bothers me because sometimes people will say, like, where do you live? I live on the border. How is it with all the cartels? That's the first question I get. People think that because I live on the border in Texas, that it is this hellhole with a bunch of crime. And it's not that. I'm like, man, McAllen was like the third safest city in the nation. And I think that is a testament to the people, is that people are just real chill, And
it sounds like you're saying if everybody in your district, if this is something that's a big part of their lives, candidates have to be able to speak to it.
Well, how can you relate to the people that you're trying to represent if you don't?
Another feature of the district you're running for, there are a lot of rural areas, right?
Oh, yes.
And this is another big split in a deepening divide in our country is between rural and urban.
Yep.
And as you know, urban areas tend to be more democratic, rural areas not so much.
Yep.
Why do you think that these places have drifted so far apart politically? It wasn't always that way to this extent.
It wasn't. I'm a rural person myself. That's what I consider myself. I'm outdoorsman and I like going out to the ranch. And yeah, I think people don't understand, in the cities, most of the big cities have progressive representation, right? And cities are bustling, they're moving, they're constant change. It's just, cities, you're like, watch out here, watch out there, right? It's like, it's just
don't look down at your phone.
It's a different vibe,
when
right?
you cross the street, yeah.
And I think that cities are a lot more welcoming to change and fast, like you go to Austin and there's Waymos everywhere driving around with no people in them and robots delivering food. And it's just a different vibe. And people out in the country, in the rural areas, move at a lot slower pace and really don't like abrupt changes. People in the rural areas, and I say because I include myself, respect is what drives us, right? Even more than money, believe it or not. Rural folk, when you're out there, yes, it's important for groceries and the money, but we already stretch our money, right? You don't really have to you don't have to compete with your neighbor's car out there. You drive your truck that's paid for.
I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so it's
right.
In some ways there's some similarities. You don't want to be too flashy.
You don't want to be flashy. You're not aspiring to buy a Rolex, right?
Right.
And so we've already learned to live with less. So respect is our biggest thing. It's like with the ban on fracking, right? When people were talking about that, a lot of these better paying jobs out there and how they put food on the table are oil and gas. And I feel like we lost a lot of people there because people just said like, hey man, you guys are moving too fast for this and this is not what I want. Kind of reminds you a little bit about that Yellowstone. You ever watch Yellowstone?
Yeah.
When John Dutton runs for governor and he says, if you're looking for change and this and that, I'm not your guy. I'm here to preserve your way of life, our way of life. Literally, that's kind of it. And so I think as a Democrat, we just have to learn how to try to talk to people. Say, we're going to make their lives better, but I'm not going to try to abruptly change your way of life. And I think respect is a big part of it. And some of these rural areas that I'm running in, they haven't seen a Democrat in a long time. Nobody's really going to talk to them. And they have this image of a Democrat. And whatever that image is, it sure as heck ain't mine.
Why are you running as a Democrat?
I've always been a Democrat. I mean, the thing that I guess that the principal thing that why I'm a Democrat is I believe that the Democrat is a party of the people. And I always believe that the people's best interest should always be in our party. We always have to fight for those people. And that's why I'm a Democrat. Republicans take care of things, materialistic things, their taxes, low this, low that. And I think that the Democratic ethos is always selflessness and say like, look, I want to help you. You're my neighbor and I want to do good by you. And I think that that's what, even though there's times in my party that I disagree with certain things and directions that I've seen going, I don't believe in changing teams. I believe in trying to make your team better.
What do you hear from voters in your area who are used to voting for Republicans?
You would be surprised how similar they are to us. There's not that much that divides us. I believe what's polarized us has been social media. I think that's been a cancer. That's made everybody in their camps kind of go crazy, right? I've talked to people and told them certain things about certain issues that they go, that's not true. I've never seen that. I said, that's by design. The algorithm doesn't want to show you what I'm seeing, and my algorithm doesn't show me what you're seeing. And that's what they're winning on, is they're polarizing us. It's like we're all in the same room and we're watching 100 different movies.
Sure.
And I think that's by design. And I think that's what we need to kind of open our horizons as far as what we're doing. That's why I'm doing grassroots, Sarah, is going out there because nobody can put words in my mouth.
You have built this career as a Tejano singer.
Yes.
People in your district know you.
Yes.
Not everybody has that when they go into politics.
Agreed.
But is there a downside, I guess, to sort of the celebrity fusion with politics that we see? And I don't mean to offend you, but we could probably think of some people who have run on their celebrity, and it doesn't necessarily correlate with being a good leader. Is there a risk?
Give me an example.
Donald Trump.
Oh, gosh. I think he told us who he was early on and was unapologetic about it. I sure as heck would not. I don't think I'm anything like that guy. I am not materialistic. I'm not brash. I don't go promise things I can't deliver. I think I'm probably a little more humble than him. I think I'm held to a double standard as a singer. And it's kind of frustrating, to be honest with you.
A double standard. How so?
I think people, they see that I sing in Spanish. I wear a cowboy hat and boots. And our party, Democratic Party, has an elitist wing because we're the party of college-educated voters, right? That went to school and sometimes expect our people running to talk like them. And I feel like I get judged to a different standard because of who I am and what I've done in my life and what I've accomplished. And so I feel like I get challenged more on policy than the average person. But I think that what is perceived as my greatest weakness is actually my greatest strength. Because, look, I am famous in my district, right? My name ID is incredibly high, and I've been a part of that culture for 30 years. And my father was a part of that culture for 30 years before me. But you'd have to be there with me talking to people. I talk to everybody. I mean, we go to a restaurant and I go to the back and say hi to the cooks. And there's just something about, like, I when I first started campaigning, I said, I am not going to be that vote for me because I'm famous guy. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go work hard. I'm going to go take my message to the people. I'm going to go earn their vote. And I do understand that I'm my biggest commodity in my campaign. But I know that if I'm going to win in this district that a Democrat was not supposed to win in, it's going to take everything for me to do it. And it's very hard. It's very tiring, but it's very rewarding because I know that we're on the right path. And doing podcasts like this, we've been doing over there back home too, that allows people to get to know me for the person that I am, not the caricature that they imagine who I am. And so it's something that I feel really good about what we've done. We have them on the ropes, believe it or not. And, we're in a dead heat right now in a Trump plus 18 district.
What is it that makes you want to not necessarily leave behind that musical career, but move on from it for the moment and run for Congress? Why do you want to go into politics?
I want to help my people. I think that 2022, when she won, the representative that's there,
Incumbent?
the incumbent, I was not very happy with that. My district is one of the poorest districts in Texas. And my biggest question was, can a Republican representative stand up to her own party and stand her ground on not hurting her own constituents? Because the Republican Party ethos is we need to cut everything. And she voted for it. And she basically was a rubber stamp on the Trump administration. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't think anybody else could beat her.
Except for you.
Yes.
So that's why you ran.
Yes.
Are there any lessons here, though, maybe for other Democrats who want to get into politics, especially in a tough place like your district? If they don't have that celebrity, if they don't have that name recognition.
There's a lot of good candidates that aren't celebrities, but not every candidate connects with people. And I think that's a big distinction that we have to make, is there has to be somebody that resonates with people. And I do think that, there's so many parallels to music and politics that I have seen.
Yeah.
Right? I can write a song that's really dear to me and dear to my heart. And I can put money in promoting that song. But if that song is not a hit, I can throw 5 times the amount of money behind that song. It'll never be a hit. And people have often asked me, like, what's the key to success in music? And I said, it's in picking good songs. Right? And to a certain degree, I think the same applies in candidates. Yeah, we feel really, really good about our chances of flipping this district. I know most people that aren't from there, across the rest of the country, look at the number and go, oh, that's tough. And I tell everybody, you see numbers, I see people. And if you saw things through my eyes when you're down there talking to people, you'd understand how competitive we are right now. And we're going to prove that in November.
All right. Bobby Pulido, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.